The phone rang 17 times before Captain James Mitchell answered. His hands were shaking. He knew who it was. He'd been waiting for this call for 6 hours. Captain Mitchell? The voice was formal. Cold, military. Yes, sir. We need you to come identify the body. James closed his eyes. The room spun. Somewhere in the distance, he heard his wife crying. But he couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't feel anything except the weight of those words. Identify the body. His son. His only son. 22 years old? Gone, sir? Are you there? James forced words out. I'll be there in an hour. He hung up. Stood in his living room wearing his military uniform. He'd been getting ready for his shift when the first call came. The call that said there'd been an accident, that his son's unit had been hit, that James needed to wait for more information. 6 hours of waiting. 6 hours of hoping. 6 hours of pretending he didn't already know. Now he knew for certain. His wife Sarah stood in the doorway. Her face was red, swollen, destroyed. James, she whispered, please don't go to work tonight. Not tonight, please. James looked at her. Looked at the woman he'd loved for 25 years. The woman who'd just lost her son. The woman who needed him. I have to, he said. You don't have to. You can take leave. You can stay home. We can grieve together. James shook his head. I have my shift. I can't abandon my post. Sarah stared at him. Disbelief turned to anger. Your son just died. Your son, James? Our boy? I know. Then stay home. Before you hear what James decides, if you believe in stories about sacrifice, duty, and impossible choices, subscribe to this channel. These are real emotions. Real struggles. Real people. Now, back to James. James picked up his cap, put it on, checked his reflection. His face looked carved from stone. No emotion. No tears. Just duty. I can't, he said quietly. I have responsibilities. What about your responsibility to me? To us. To your son's memory? James didn't answer. He walked past her, out the door, into the cold evening air behind him. He heard her collapse. Heard her sobbing. Heard her scream his name. He kept walking. The drive to the base took 40 minutes. James drove in complete silence. No radio. No thoughts. Just the sound of tires on asphalt and his own heartbeat. At the base, he went to the morgue first. Did what he'd been asked to do. Identified his son, David Mitchell. Age 22. Sergeant. Killed in action. James. Looked at his son's face. Peaceful. Young. Forever young now. He didn't cry. Didn't touch him. Didn't say goodbye. He just signed the papers and left. His commanding officer found him in the hallway. Mitchell, go home. You're on immediate leave. 7 days, maybe more if you need it. I don't need it, sir. I have my shift. James. His commander's voice softened. Your son just died. Take time. Permission to return to duty, sir. Saw something broken behind James's eyes. Something that needed work, needed duty, needed anything except sitting alone with grief. Permission granted, he said quietly. But James, you can't run from this forever. I'm not running. I'm doing my job. At 8 p.m., Captain James Mitchell took his post at the main gate. Same as he'd done for 18 years. Same position. Same routine. Same duty, except nothing was the same. Cars came and went. He checked IDs. Waved people through. Saluted officers. Did everything exactly as required. His face showed nothing. Inside, he was screaming. Around midnight, a young private approached the gate. Maybe 20 years old. Same age David had been when he enlisted. Evening, sir, the private said cheerfully. James checked his ID, handed it back. Proceed. Thank you, sir. Beautiful night, isn't it? James looked at the sky. Stars everywhere. The kind of night David used to love? Yes, James said. It is. The private drove off. James stood alone at the gate. And for just a moment, his hands shook. But only for a moment. Then he straightened his shoulders, adjusted his cap, and stared straight ahead. Duty didn't pause for grief. That's what he'd always believed, what he'd taught his son. Now his son was dead, and James was still standing at his post. The question everyone would ask, was he strong or was he broken? James didn't know the answer, and he wasn't sure he wanted to find out. Asterisk, the shift ended at 6 a.m. James drove home as the sun rose. Same route. Same speed. Same silence. Sarah was in the kitchen when he arrived. She hadn't slept. Her eyes were hollow. She'd been crying all night. "You stayed," she said. Not a question. An accusation. "I had my shift. Your son died yesterday." "Do you?" Sarah's voice cracked. "Do you actually know? Or are you so buried in duty that you can't feel anything anymore?" James removed his cap, set it on the table. "I feel everything." "Then show me. Cry, scream, break something. Be human, James. Please, be human." But James couldn't. He didn't know how anymore. He'd joined the military at 18. Spent 24 years in service. 24 years learning that emotion was weakness. That feelings compromise duty. That a soldier stands regardless of what he feels. He'd taught David the same thing. And now David was dead because of it. "I need to sleep," James said. "The funeral arrangements, I'll handle them," Sarah said bitterly. "Like I handle everything else. You just keep standing at your post." James went to the bedroom, lay down in his uniform, stared at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come. Neither did tears, just memories. David as a little boy wearing James's too big military cap, saluting sloppily. "I'm going to be just like you, Dad." David at 18, enlisting despite Sarah's tears. "It's what I'm supposed to do. It's what Mitchells do." David 3 months ago on video call from overseas. "I understand now, Dad. Why you missed everything. Why duty came first. I get it." James had felt proud in that moment. Proud his son understood sacrifice. Now he felt like a murderer. The funeral was scheduled for Saturday. 4 days away. Sarah's family came. James's brother came. David's friends from high school. Everyone gathered, grieving, supporting each other. James went to work every shift. Every day. Exactly as scheduled, people noticed. Whispers followed him. "Did you hear about Mitchell? His son died, and he hasn't taken a single day off." Some admired it. Dedication, discipline, strength. Others saw something darker, avoidance, cowardice, breaking. James heard the whispers. Didn't care, or told himself he didn't care. On Thursday, 2 days before the funeral, Sarah came to the base. She'd never done that before. In 25 years, she'd never visited him at work. She found him at the gate during his shift. "James, we need to talk. I'm on duty. I don't care." Her voice was sharp, cold. "You're going to listen." James glanced at his watch. "I have 3 hours left. Then I'll wait." She sat on a bench outside the guard station. Just sat there, watching him, waiting. 3 hours passed. James checked IDs, saluted officers, did his job the entire time. Sarah watched. When his relief arrived, James finally walked over to her. "Say what you need to say." Sarah stood slowly. Her face was different, harder. "I'm leaving." James felt something crack inside. "What?" "After the funeral, I'm going to stay with my sister. I don't know for how long. Maybe forever." "Sarah, I lost my son 4 days ago. I've been alone with that loss because you refused to be there. You refused to grieve? You refused to be my husband?" She stepped closer. "I know you're hurting. I know you're in pain. But you're choosing duty over me again, like you always have. It's not that simple." "It is that simple, James. You have a choice. You've always had a choice. You just keep choosing wrong." Sarah turned to leave, then stopped. "David worshipped you. Did you know that? He wanted to be exactly like you. Strong, unbreakable, always dutiful. Her voice broke, and it got him killed. Because he learned from you that duty matters more than survival. More than coming home. The words hit James like bullets. It's not fair. Fair? Sarah laughed bitterly. You want to talk about fair? I begged David not to enlist. Begged him to go to college, get a normal job, live a normal life. But he wanted to be like his father, his hero. And now he's dead at 22. I didn't force him. You didn't have to. You showed him every day of his life that duty was everything. That sacrifice was noble. That standing at your post mattered more than family. Sarah wiped her eyes. Well, congratulations, James. You got what you wanted. A son just like you. And it cost him everything. She walked away. James stood frozen. Around him, the base continued its routine. Cars coming and going. Soldiers laughing. Life moving forward. But James couldn't move. For the first time in 4 days, something broke through his wall of duty. Doubt. Friday night, the night before the funeral, James sat alone in his house. Sarah was at her sister's. The silence was total, complete. He still wore his uniform. Hadn't changed in 5 days except to put on a fresh one. As if the uniform could hold him together. As if duty could fill the void. On the coffee table sat David's Purple Heart. It had arrived that morning. Official condolences from the military. Gratitude for his sacrifice. James picked it up. Felt the weight of it. His son was worth more than a medal. Worth more than duty. Worth more than any mission. But James had taught him otherwise. Every missed birthday. Every canceled vacation. Every time James chose his post over his family, the lesson was clear. Duty first. Always. And David had learned it perfectly. James's phone rang. His brother Michael. James, I'm at the house. Where are you? Home, Sarah said. You're not going to the vigil tonight. There was a vigil at the church. David's friends, family, a celebration of his life before tomorrow's funeral. I can't, James said. Can't or won't. Does it matter? Michael was quiet for a moment. Then James, I'm coming over. Don't. I'm already on my way. 20 minutes later, Michael knocked on the door. James didn't answer. Michael let himself in with the spare key. He found James sitting in the dark, still in uniform, holding David's medal. Michael sat down across from him. Didn't say anything at first. Just sat there. Finally, you know what I remember most about when we were kids? James didn't respond. Dad's funeral, Michael continued. You were 16? I was 13. And you stood at that grave like a statue. Didn't cry. Didn't break. Mom was falling apart. I was falling apart. But not you. You were strong. Someone had to be.
How?
Someone had to feel. You were just scared too. James looked at his brother. What's your point? My point is, you've been running from feelings your entire life. You joined the military because it gave you permission to not feel, to put duty first and call it noble, to avoid the messy, painful parts of being human. That's not true, isn't it? Michael leaned forward. Name one time you chose family over duty. One time, James opened his mouth, closed it. Couldn't. David's 8th birthday, Michael said. You missed it for a training exercise. His high school graduation, you were deployed. His last visit home before deployment, you cut it short because you were called in early for a shift you could have easily given to someone else. I had responsibilities. You had a son who needed his father, a son who loved you so much he had tried to become you, and it killed him. The words hung in the air like smoke. James felt something inside finally crack. Really crack. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're doing the exact same thing. Hiding behind duty, refusing to grieve, refusing to feel. I don't know how to feel this, James said, his voice breaking. I don't know how to carry this. Michael's expression softened. Then stop carrying it alone. Stop pretending you're fine. Stop standing at attention when you should be falling apart. If I fall apart, then you fall apart. And Sarah catches you, and I catch you, and everyone who loves you catches you. That's what family does. James looked at David's medal again. He was so proud the day he enlisted. Told me he finally understood why I did what I did. Why I sacrificed. I thought I'd taught him something important. You did. You taught him duty matters more than life. And he believed you. The truth of it was unbearable. James finally set down the medal, covered his face with his hands. And for the first time in 30 years, he cried. Not quiet tears. Not stoic grief. He sobbed. Deep, wrenching sounds that came from a place he'd locked away his entire adult life. Michael moved beside him. Put a hand on his shoulder, said nothing. Just stayed, James cried for his son. For his wife, for himself. For every moment he'd chosen duty over presence. For every lesson he'd taught that should never have been taught. When the tears finally stopped, James felt emptied, hollow, but also lighter. As if something poisonous had been released. I don't know how to fix this, James whispered. Start by showing up tomorrow. Not as Captain Mitchell, as David's father, as Sarah's husband, as a man who's breaking. Let people see it. I don't know if I can. For David, he died believing in you. Show him, wherever he is, that he believed in someone real, not just a uniform. James nodded slowly. That night, he took off his uniform. For the first time in 5 days, he changed into civilian clothes, jeans, a shirt. Nothing military. He looked at himself in the mirror. Without the uniform, he barely recognized himself. Maybe that was the point. Maybe it was time to meet the man underneath the duty. The man who'd been hiding for decades. The man his son never really knew. James lay down and finally slept. When he awoke, it was Saturday. The funeral was at 10 a.m. James got dressed. Not in his dress uniform. Not in military precision. In a simple black suit. As a father, as a husband, as a man, he was about to discover if it was too late to be any of those things. The church was packed. Hundreds of people. Military personnel in dress uniform. David's friends from school, neighbors, family, people whose lives David had touched in 22 short years. James arrived alone. Sarah was already there with her sister. She saw him enter, and something flickered in her eyes. Surprise? Maybe? He wasn't in uniform. He walked to the front row, sat next to her. She didn't look at him, but she didn't move away either. The service began. A chaplain spoke about sacrifice. About honor. About duty. James heard the words but didn't absorb them. He just stared at the flag-draped coffin. His son was inside. His only child? Then it was time for eulogies. David's best friend spoke first. Told funny stories about high school. About David's terrible sense of humor. About how loyal he was. Then David's commanding officer stood. Talked about David's bravery. His dedication. How he'd volunteered for the mission that killed him because it was dangerous and someone had to go. Sergeant Mitchell embodied the finest traditions of military service, the officer said. He put duty above all else. He learned that from his father, a man who has served with equal dedication for over 2 decades. People nodded. Some looked at James with respect. James felt sick. When the officer finished, there was a pause. The chaplain asked if anyone else wanted to speak. James stood. Sarah looked at him, shocked. James never spoke at public events. Never drew attention. Never showed emotion. He walked to the podium. Looked out at the crowd. At the faces expecting him to talk about honor, duty, sacrifice. He couldn't do it. My son died because of me, James said. The church went silent. Not directly. I didn't pull a trigger. I wasn't there. But I'm responsible. His voice shook. I taught David that duty was everything. That sacrifice was noble. That a real man stands at his post no matter what. I taught him to be just like me. Sarah was crying. James could see her in the front row. I missed his childhood, James continued. I chose work over every birthday party, every school play, every baseball game. I told myself it was for a good reason. that I was serving something bigger. That duty mattered more than presence. His hands gripped the podium, and David watched. He thought, that's what men do. That's what love looks like. Absence in service of duty. Someone in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. When he enlisted, I was proud. Proud he was following in my footsteps. Proud he understood sacrifice. James's voice broke completely. I was proud my son had learned to value duty over his own life. And 3 months ago, when he volunteered for the mission that killed him, he was proving what I taught him. That the mission matters more than coming home. Tears ran down James's face. He didn't wipe them away. I was wrong. About everything. Duty without love is just absence. Sacrifice without presence is just abandonment. I sacrificed my family for my service and called it noble. But it was cowardice. I was hiding behind duty because I was afraid to be vulnerable. Afraid to be human. He looked at Sarah. I failed you. For 25 years, I chose my post over you. I let you raise our son alone while I stood guard. I thought I was being strong. I was just being absent. Then he looked at the coffin. And David, I failed you most of all. I should have taught you that life matters more than duty. That coming home matters more than completing the mission. That being present for the people you love is the only duty that really counts. James's voice dropped to a whisper. I'm so sorry, son. I'm so sorry I taught you to die for duty instead of live for love. He stepped down. The church was completely silent. Some people were crying. Others looked uncomfortable. Everyone was watching. James walked back to his seat. Sat down next to Sarah. She took his hand. It was the first time they'd touched in 6 days. The service continued, but James barely registered it. He just held Sarah's hand and cried. At the cemetery, they lowered David's coffin into the ground. A 21-gun salute echoed across the headstones. A bugler played taps. The flag was folded with precision and presented to Sarah. She clutched it to her chest. Sobbing, James stood beside her. Not at attention, not stoic, just broken. Openly, completely broken. After the ceremony, people approached. Some offered condolences. Others thanked James for his honesty. One older veteran gripped his shoulder hard. I did the same thing, the veteran said quietly. Chose duty over family my whole life. My kids barely know me. You're braver than I ever was, saying it out loud. James didn't feel brave. He felt destroyed. When most people had left, Michael approached with their commanding officer. Ow. Mitchell, the officer said. I want to talk to you about your duty schedule. I'm taking leave, James interrupted. 30 days. Starting Monday, the officer blinked. Of course. Take whatever time you need. It's not about time, James said. It's about priority. I'm reevaluating everything. After the officer left, Michael smiled slightly. That's a start. It's probably too late. Maybe, but it's a start. That evening, James and Sarah sat in their living room. The house was full of flowers, condolence cards, casseroles from neighbors. Are you still leaving? James asked quietly. Sarah was silent for a long time. I don't know, she finally said. What you said today? ... I needed to hear it. But words are just words, James. I've heard apologies before. This is different, is it? She looked at him. You've always been good at duty, at standing your post, but are you capable of the harder thing? Of actually being present? Of choosing me? I want to try. Trying isn't enough. Not anymore. Sarah's voice was firm but not cruel. I need proof. Real, sustained change. Not just grief. Not just guilt. Actual commitment to being a partner instead of a soldier. James nodded. What do you need from me? I need you to stay home. Take your leave and actually be here. Not physically present while mentally at your post. Actually here with me. Grieving with me. Rebuilding with me. Okay. And when you go back to work, I need you to choose me sometimes. Not always. I know your job matters. But sometimes, I need to matter more. You do matter more. You always did. I just didn't know how to show it. Sarah wiped her eyes. Then learn. We can't get David back, but maybe we can save us. James reached for her hand. She let him take it. They sat together in the silence. Two people who'd forgotten how to be together. Learning again, it wouldn't be easy. Years of absence couldn't be fixed in days, but for the first time in decades, James wasn't standing at his post. He was home. The first week was the hardest. James didn't know what to do with himself. For 24 years, his life had structure. Wake at 5. Physical training, work, sleep, repeat. Now he woke up with nothing scheduled. No post to stand. No orders to follow. Just grief and time. Sarah gave him space, but stayed close. They existed in the same house like two wounded soldiers, neither quite sure how to tend the other's wounds. On the third day, James cleaned out David's old bedroom. Sarah had left it untouched since he enlisted 4 years ago. Posters on the walls, trophies from high school track, books he'd never finished. James sat on the bed and picked up a journal from the nightstand. David's handwriting filled the pages. Entries from high school. James opened to a random page. Dad missed my track meet today. Again, Mom says he's doing important work. I know he is. I'm proud of him. But sometimes I wish I was important enough too. James closed the journal. Couldn't read more. Each entry was probably the same. A son longing for a father who was always somewhere else. He set the journal aside and noticed a shoebox in the closet. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. All addressed to Dad in David's handwriting. None mailed. None given. James opened the first one, dated from when David was 13. Dear Dad, I know you're busy. I know your work is important. But I scored the winning goal today, and you weren't there. Coach said you'd be proud. I hope he's right. I hope you'd be proud. I wish I knew for sure. Love, David. Another letter from age 15. Dear Dad, I've decided to join the military after high school. I know it'll make you proud. I want to be just like you, strong, dedicated, important. Maybe if I'm a soldier. You'll see me the way you see your duty. Maybe then I'll be enough. Love, David. James read them all. Every letter, every plea for attention disguised as updates. Every achievement mentioned hoping it would matter enough for James to notice by the last letter. Dated 2 months before David deployed. James couldn't see the page through his tears. Dear Dad, I finally understand now. Why you chose duty. Why you were always gone. It feels good to be part of something bigger. To sacrifice for others. I'm not angry anymore. I get it. And I'm proud to be your son. When I come home, maybe we can finally talk like soldiers. Like equals. Love, David. James sat on his dead son's bed, surrounded by unspoken words, and understood the full weight of his failure. David had died still trying to earn his attention. Still trying to be enough, he went downstairs. Found Sarah in the kitchen. Did you know he wrote letters? James asked. Yes. Did you read them? Some. He showed me a few over the years. Sarah's voice was soft. He loved you so much, James. He just wanted you to see him. I did see him. No, you saw a reflection of yourself. You saw duty and discipline and potential. But you never just saw David. Your son. The boy who needed his father. James sat at the table, put his head in his hands. I don't know how to fix this. You can't. Not with him. Sarah sat across from him. But you can fix it with me. You can fix what's left. Over the following weeks, James tried. Really tried. He cooked breakfast. Did laundry. Sat with Sarah in the evenings. They talked about David, about their marriage, about the years of silence between them. Some conversations were painful. Sarah had wounds that ran deep. 25 years of being second to duty. 25 years of raising David alone. 25 years of going to bed wondering if her husband loved his job more than his family. I did love you, James said one night. I always did. I know. But love without presence is just a word. I needed you. David needed you, and you were always standing guard somewhere else. I thought I was doing the right thing. I know you did. That's the tragedy. You sacrificed your family, believing it was noble. And now we're all paying the price. James took a breath. What do we do now? Sarah looked at him carefully. You need therapy. Real therapy. Not military counseling. Someone who can help you understand why you've been running from emotions your whole life. I'm not running, James. Her voice was firm. You stood at your post the night your son died. You didn't cry for 5 days. You've built your entire life around avoiding feelings. That's not strength. That's trauma. And it's destroying you. James wanted to argue, but couldn't. She was right. Okay, he said. I'll find someone. The therapist's office was small and comfortable. Nothing like military facilities. Dr. Alina Santos was in her 50s, calm and direct. Tell me why you're here, she said. My wife thinks I have issues, do you? James was quiet. My son died 3 weeks ago. I'm sorry. How are you handling it? I went to work that night. Worked my full shift. Kept working until my leave started.
Dr. Santos didn't look shocked.
Just sad. Why? It's what I do. I stand my post. Even when your post should have been with your family. The question hit hard. James looked away. They talked for an hour. Dr. Santos asked about his childhood. About his father dying when he was 16. About joining the military at 18. You've been in uniform longer than you were a civilian, she observed. The military gave you structure when your world fell apart. It gave you rules to follow when emotions felt too big to handle. That's not you learned that feelings were dangerous. That duty was safe. That if you just followed orders and stood your post, you could avoid the pain of being human. James felt exposed. Seen in a way he'd never allowed. And then you taught your son the same thing? Dr. Santos continued gently. Because it's all you knew. You passed down your trauma disguised as strength. I thought I was teaching him to be strong. You taught him to be absent. From himself. From his emotions. From life. She leaned forward. James' strength isn't the absence of feeling. It's feeling everything and choosing connection anyway. That's what your son needed. That's what your wife needs. That's what you need. James left the session feeling raw, exposed, but also for the first time. Hopeful maybe it wasn't too late to learn a different kind of strength. Maybe duty could look like showing up for the people who loved him. Maybe he could learn to be present, instead of just standing guard. Asterisk. 3 months after David's death, James returned to work. Not to his old post at the gate. He'd requested a transfer. Something with different hours. Something that allowed him to be home at night. He was. Assigned to training new recruits? Teaching? It was strange at first, uncomfortable. But also meaningful in a way gate duty never was. The young soldiers reminded him of David. Fresh, idealistic, ready. To sacrifice everything for duty, James taught them. Tactics, protocol, discipline. But he also taught them something else. Duty is important, he told them one afternoon, but it's not everything. If you have family, don't do what I did. Don't miss the moments. Don't sacrifice presence for service. The military will take everything you give it. Make sure you save something for the people who love you. Some recruits looked confused. This wasn't standard military teaching. One young soldier raised her hand. Sir, isn't duty supposed to come first? James thought about it. Duty to what? To orders? To missions? Or to the people depending on you? He paused. I spent 24 years choosing orders over my family. My son is dead. My wife almost left me. I missed everything that mattered. Don't be me, word got back to his commanding officer. James was called in. Mitchell, I've been hearing about your training sessions. Some people think you're undermining military values, am I? James met his eyes. Because I think I'm teaching balance. These kids need to know that service doesn't require sacrificing their humanity. The officer studied him. You've changed. I lost my son. That changes you. Does. Sometimes for the better. The officer leaned back. Keep teaching them. Maybe you're right. Maybe we've been teaching duty at the expense of everything else. At home, things slowly improved. Therapy helped. James attended sessions twice a week. Learned about trauma, about emotional avoidance, about how his father's death had shaped everything that followed. He learned that strength could look like vulnerability. That being present required courage. That love demanded sacrifice, but a different kind than he'd thought. Sarah started trusting him again. Slowly, it wasn't instant forgiveness. She'd been hurt too deeply for that. But James showed up. Every day. Not perfectly, but consistently. He started cooking dinner. They ate together every night, talked about their days, about David, about the future. The conversations were sometimes awkward, sometimes painful, but they were real. One evening, 6 months after David's death, Sarah said something that changed everything. "I'm not leaving." James looked up from his plate. "What?" "I was going to. After the funeral, I was ready to leave and never look back." She set down her fork. "But you changed. Actually changed. Not just words. Not just promises. You chose me. Every day, you chose me." James felt tears in his eyes. "I should have chosen you 30 years ago." "Yes. But you're choosing me now. That matters." They held hands across the table. Two broken people learning to heal together. A year after David's death, James received a letter from Marcus, one of David's fellow soldiers. He'd heard about James's training methods, about the speech at the funeral. The letter was short but powerful. "Sir, your son saved my life twice. Once in combat, once after I was going down the same road he did. Duty above everything. No balance. No life outside service. Then I heard what you said at his funeral, about how duty without love is just absence. It woke me up. I called my parents, visited my sister, started actually living instead of just serving. David would want you to know his death meant something. It saved me. And through your honesty, it's saving others. Thank you." James showed the letter to Sarah. They both cried. David's death was still a wound that would never fully heal. But maybe, in some small way, it could also be a bridge, a lesson, a warning to others not to make the same mistakes. James started speaking at military family events, talking about balance, about presence, about the cost of choosing duty over connection. Some people criticized him, said he was soft, that he'd lost his edge. James didn't care. He'd spent his whole life caring what the military thought. Now he cared about what mattered. 2 years after David's death, James stood at his son's grave. He visited every week now, brought flowers, talked to the headstone like David could hear. "I'm teaching your name," James said quietly. "Not just your rank or your medals. I'm teaching recruits about Sergeant David Mitchell, who loved basketball and terrible movies and his mother's cooking, who was scared but brave, who died believing in duty but deserved to live for love." The wind moved through the cemetery. James imagined it was David, listening. "I failed you," James continued. "Every day, I carry that. But I'm trying to make sure other fathers don't do the same. Other sons get to come home. Other families stay whole." Placed a hand on the headstone. "I love you. I should have said it more. Should have shown it better. But I love you." James walked back to his car where Sarah waited. They'd come together. They did everything together now. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I am." And surprisingly, he meant it. Not healed, not whole, but okay? Learning to live with the weight of grief. Learning that strength isn't pushing down emotions, but feeling them and choosing life anyway. James. Mitchell spent 42 years learning the wrong lessons. Learning that duty meant absence. That strength meant silence. That love meant sacrifice of presence. His son died teaching him the truth. Now James spent his days teaching others. Not how to stand at their post, but how to stand with their families. How to serve without sacrificing humanity. How to be strong enough to be vulnerable. He couldn't save David, but maybe he could save other sons, other fathers, other families from the same fate. On the drive home, Sarah reached for his hand. James took it, held it tight. "David would be proud of you," she said softly. James thought about that. About the letters David wrote but never sent. About a son who died still hoping his father would see him. "I hope so," James said. "I really hope so." But the truth was simpler and harder. David shouldn't have needed to be proud. He should have had a father who was present, who chose him, who understood that the greatest duty wasn't to orders or missions or posts. It was to love, to family, to the people who needed you most. James learned that lesson too late to save his son, but not too late to save himself. Not too late to finally, after decades of standing guard, come home. The unyielding guard had broken, and in breaking, had finally learned how to be whole.